Here's what she tweeted, quote, "It's not a celebration, it's a solemn commemoration, and it's not about Trump," end of quote. This is Cherry Jacobus saying this. Wow. That's something. Isn't unbelievable, yeah. Yeah, Romney McDaniel's grandfather was former Michigan Governor George Romney. Her uncle is Mitt Romney, old Mittens. Grew up in Bloomfield Hills. Went to Lasher High School, Bloomfield Hills.
If we could just drive a wedge.
They live in Northville, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
If we could just weaken that base, that military base. Trump stands with one leg on the military and the other on the Christian fundamentalist. If you could just weaken that. I had a friend on Facebook, won't give you his name. I asked him this week, I said, wait a second, how can the Christian community support a man who makes fun of handicapped people, brags about his ability to grab a woman's genitals when you're that powerful?
Mm-hmm.
How can you continue? He pays off porn stars. He's committed adultery with, I think, every single wife that he's had. This was his answer. His answer was, well, the good things he did outweighed the bad things.
Oh, really?
And I said to him,
really?
I don't think you've ever weighed the bad things. I'd like to see that scale.
Yeah, so would I. Everybody wants to, you know who we hear that excuse about in this very town, Jack, right here in Grand Rapids, Michigan? We hear that about the DeVos family.
Yeah, right.
Oh, the stuff that they've done with the hospitals and the labs and everything, that just outdoes every bad thing. No, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
Sorry, you can have a scorecard, wins and losses. But just to take a page out of one of the wrestling promotions books, wins and losses count here. Yeah, well, folks, they do here on this show.
There are actions, votes, and things that politicians can do individually that completely eliminates them from consideration. Mm-hmm. For Biden, for example, to have voted against Roe versus Wade. Gone. Don't have to anymore.
Mm-hmm.
For Hillary to vote against the Iraq War. Don't need to know anymore. You have to look at one incident of Trump and say that's indicative of a sick mind.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, totally sick. To make sure McCain's name is covered over?
That should be, you know what?
Insane in the membrane.
To quote Cypress Hill.
Yeah. Man, keep me laughing.
Gosh.
Try and get me laughing.
Well,
here.
I tell you what, you've actually got a story that we want to tie in with D-Day, and it has to do with guns.
Yeah, we're faced with a shooting this week in Virginia.
Yeah, the Virginia Beach, Virginia shooting, the disgruntled city employee who walked in and indiscriminately killed, 11 or 12 people before the police finally took him out.
Right. And, the thing is, this was not somebody who was acting irrationally. I guess he had worked there for some time, had turned in a letter of resignation. And
you just turned in a letter of resignation earlier that day. What was up with that?
Right. This wasn't like the kid down in Florida that had been abused and handed around to one family or another. This was a guy who'd been a worker all of his life. What's shocking to me is that's how we deal with things here. Mm-hmm. You're a little upset. You go in, you blow away 12 or 13. I don't know how many it was.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at. That's, I used to say this to, I'd argue with Christians, and they'd say, hey, God's a God of life. I'd say, oh, really? He's a God of life. Every major thing he's ever done was when he killed somebody. You go to the flood, you go to his own son. And as Carlin once said, God is the leading cause of death. I repeat, God is the leading cause of death. Our leading cause of death are guns. The exclamation point we put on our actions are with a gun. You got a problem? I'm maintaining that the Judeo-Christian God, any problem he ever had, he killed somebody.
Mm-hmm.
He killed pigeons. He killed goats. You got a problem in the United States, you just go and you shoot up a bunch of people. You got a mental thorn that you can't get out of your psychic, you just go and you blow people away. That's our choice of resolution. People are asking why they shoot in Virginia Beach use a gun to settle his workplace score. Actually, the answer's simple.
I want to interrupt you there. This piece is written by Thom Hartmann, of all people. This was originally published For Independent Media Institute, it's been published at commondreams.org, dated June 4th.
Yep. This is what Thom says. When a man has a gun, he literally holds the power of life and death in his hand. That kind of power is extraordinarily seductive. With a gun in his hand, a man can look around a room, a building, a public area, and identify who will instantly die and whom he will allow to live. It's a power that traditionally has only been held by doctors, priests, police, and soldiers. The power over life and death is greater, more intoxicating than any other power. It's one of the reasons why men are specifically drawn to these professions and historically have tried to regulate them to be male only. And I know historically that we had legislators stand in Washington arguing that it made only good sense that only white men could have a gun. I am not making that up. If you're not a male and have never carried a gun in public, it's only an imaginary experiment. But science shows that simply handling a gun alters men's levels of testosterone and measurably increases their aggressive behavior. Now, this is the point here, that just handling guns, the science of this study proved those men were more likely to go out and be aggressive against other people. They didn't have to shoot anybody. They just had to rub that magic lantern a piece. This is a male problem, folks. 85% of all homicides are committed by males. 97% of all homicides where the shooter and the victim don't know each other are also by males. In the case of school and workplace shootings, we're talking about a workplace shooting down in Virginia. I know you probably have forgotten. It was 2 days ago. The shooters are also more than 97% male. And I might add a high percentage are white male, if not 100% are white male. As a result of this male aggression provoked in part by handling guns in America, guns are the second leading cause of death behind car crashes. But for children between 1 and 19 years old, the number, wait a second, is that true? As a result of the male aggression provoked in part by handling guns in America, guns are the second leading cause of death for people between 1 and 19 years old.
Yeah, that is true. Just behind car crashes, it says here.
We honor our soldiers. We just heard about this in the piece that Darren read in France because they're willing to face gunfire.
By the way, that study where it says that it's the number 2 leading cause of death, that was published by the New England Journal of Medicine. We've got the article posted to our Facebook page. There are links in the article to these studies, so please don't take our word. Click the links.
This is in shadow of our conversation last week when we talked about the Memorial Day extravaganza and how every city in the United States had statues and honorary plaques. Mm-hmm. And as Thom says, we honor our soldiers. You go to board an airplane today, they get to go in first. TV commentators automatically say, thank you for your service. The most ubiquitous news coverage you're going to see on the American screen today is a returning soldier and their children running together at the airport.
Or where the returning family member who was stationed overseas unexpectedly shows up at school, shows up at some sort of a family function, shows up at a public event, and is reunited in front of the cameras.
When a policeman dies, we honor that willingness to face gunfire, okay? But we are then exposed to a major citywide funeral event. Mm-hmm. Thousands of people show up. Yet, here it is. This is a punchline. All this was read for this. Yet more children die from firearms in the United States every year than all the police and all of the American military deaths worldwide combined. Where is a statue for a 15-year-old who's blown away sitting in his desk? Don't see those statues.
No.
No gate attendant is going to say to the airplane passengers, children under 19 may board first because we thank you for your sacrifice of dying in your homes and schools to give men thrills and keep the gun industry profits high. That is a powerful correlation. This goes way beyond the joke of the small penis gun club. Now,
and
before we move on,
apparently there's a Facebook page called the Small Penis Gun Club.
Well, you saw the parody on not Helter Skelter, but on Hee Haw with Jim Carrey. Did you ever see that?
No, it wasn't Hee Haw.
Yeah, he did a parody of Hee Haw. He wasn't on Hee Haw.
Oh, okay.
And he makes fun of the guys with small penises and their guns. Mm-hmm. It drove the conservatives crazy. We might be able to get that.
I'll have to find that after the show.
Sure, absolutely. But men, it turns out, are actually hardwired by evolution and biology to react to having power over others with a boost in testosterone and an increase in aggression. And the study I'm going to paraphrase here of 2006 found that if men even barely handled a gun, they were significantly then more likely to give other men a higher dose of hot sauce or aggression.
Mm-hmm. By the way, that study was published in Psychological Science by Kleinsmith, Kasser, and McAndrew.
For men who feel they've lost control of their lives, how many of those are there? Or who feel dismissed or disrespected by others, a gun is pure catnip.
Mm-hmm.
That's poetry.
It is. It's the truth.
It's true. Firing a gun, in addition to raising testosterone levels, simply handling one does actually produces a feeling similar to intoxication. As a law professor from UCLA points out, shooting guns triggers high levels of adrenaline and morphines, producing a high, like riding a roller coaster. This article goes on to say, we have cars in the 50s that were killing people. They're called muscle cars. And I remember this because I was of that age. They said, we have got to slow down the testosterone of 15 and 16-year-old kids. Whether they have a small penis in the locker room is not the question. They go out and pop that hood, and you look at that 4-barrel carburetor. Mm-hmm. They're in the game, folks. That was their equation of power. I know, because I remember the cars in the parking lot. But then the ads and the numbers started coming out how many of these kids are being killed or killing somebody else. Mm-hmm. So they passed a whole hell of a lot of regulation to control that form of testosterone boost called a muscle car. Sound familiar?
Mm-hmm. I was going to, since you mentioned muscle cars, did you see this? This was on Inside Edition earlier this week. Tracy Morgan, the actor, who was in that really bad limo wreck, almost died a few years ago.
That, yeah.
Just bought a $2 million Bugatti, had it off the lot 15 minutes, and it got hit by some old lady in a car.
That guy better start taking the bus.
It did $100,000 in damage. They were giving the stats on this car. It cost $20,000 to do an oil change on it. $60,000 to change a tire because the tires are glued on. This is excess on top of excess.
Well, you take a car or you take a big muscle-bound Dodge Ram, right? And you get some guy in the commercial
and it's
with his tight blue jeans on. Don't tell me that that's our satisfaction for a need to have power.
And I have to laugh that you mentioned Dodge because really they're the only auto manufacturer that's still making muscle cars.
Oh, yeah. They got a demon out there. It's got 500 horsepower or something.
Well, what? Chevy pretty much has the Camaro and the Corvette, and that's it. And I don't even know if they're going to make the Camaro anymore. Ford has the Mustang. That's pretty much their car. They're not making passenger cars.
Right.
They're done. They're making SUVs and trucks. But then Dodge, on the other hand, has the Charger, the Challenger. The Charger, that's their police fleet vehicle. I've seen that in action. That thing is wicked fast.
Yeah.
But I used to own an old Dodge cop car. I had a 1982 Dodge Diplomat. I got that son of a bitch up to 105 one time. Scared the crap out of me. That was I loved that car more than I loved anything else.
You're not going to see some guy that's got a testosterone problem having it satisfied driving a 4-door Hyundai. You're going to look at our culture. We make money off of the male testosterone quest. Either the gun sales or the car sales. I mean,
yeah,
let's just look at the difference between having some regulation, though, on a 2,000-pound car. That's a weapon. We make sure they get a license, right?
Yeah, you have to go through driver's ed. You have to show that you're proficient enough to drive. You have to be licensed to drive.
The vehicle has to be registered, right? Annually, not once at a gun show.
Yep. You register the car once a year with a new tab on your license plate. You have to prove that you have insurance on it before you can even get a license plate.
You have to make sure that people driving a 2,000-pound car of steel and glass flying down the highway at 70 miles an hour knows what they're doing.